Men of Reddit, what are some telltale signs that a woman is creepy? Tighty whitey is stapled to her wall as conquest art. I've seen it. It's out there. In high school there was a girl who liked me. She ended up carving my name into her foot. My ex would freak out and throw things and scream at me. That's not the disturbing thing. She would forget about it, hit reset and act like it didn't happen the next day. Over and over. I started filming her episodes to prove to myself I wasn't going crazy. This girl I met on Tinder had me take her out to a restaurant and then switched tables with her friend. They had been on blind dates and decided to switch. Her friend was not as attractive and I was very uncomfortable. After ordering my food I went to the bathroom for 10 minutes to contemplate my exit strategy. When I got back they had both left. The other guy asked if he could sit with me, so we had dinner and he ate his date's enchiladas. It was actually kind of fun after they left. When she starts taking offense to doing anything without her involved. Had one girlfriend who insisted that she be with me for any outing. Watching movies with friends. Having dinner and drinks with the guys. She always found a way to come along. When I asked why she was so insistent on going everywhere with me, she said she wanted to make sure I wasn't talking to any other girls, and shortly after told me to cut off contact with every girl I regularly talked to, which really just signaled a huge jealousy insecurity problem. I told her I wasn't going to do that and to be assured that I chose her to be in a relationship with. If I wanted anyone else I would not have signed up to be with her. That didn't stop her though. One day I went out to have barbecue with the guys without her and noticed on the way there and on the way home a car was following me. It was her making sure there weren't any girls I was talking to. I broke it off with her after that. After a few days of her sending a constant bombardment of angry texts she finally left me alone. Outright refusing to believe that a guy might not be into her advances. I've seen a woman stare in bewilderment at her boyfriend after he had to repeatedly remove her hand from his crotch because she couldn't comprehend that he didn't feel like getting felt up in a public area. I've also had a woman, middle-aged, throw a tantrum because I wouldn't buy her a drink when I, 22 at the time, was at a bar while I was with my parents and some visiting family members. In my experience, constantly talking about how people don't get them. All of their exes are crazy. I only hang out with guys. I had a boss who acted like I could do no wrong. She praised me and thought I was the best. Then one day like a switch she turned on me. She acted like I was the spawn of Satan. I don't know how I didn't lose my job. Somehow I weaseled my way out of that mess. Then I noticed she does the same thing with all her new men employees. I don't take well to obsessive praise anymore after her. Edit. I just want to thank all the people who replied in the upvotes. You guys are awesome and why I love Reddit. Actually started studying psychology because of that women. I am currently studying Eastern philosophy. There was a lot more to her behavior than what I wrote above, which includes a ton of gaslighting and cognitive dissonance. Her behavior is textbook borderline personality disorder. My advice to anybody who thinks you may be stuck with a cluster B individual would be to work on yourself. There is nothing you can do for them. I had a girlfriend who yelled at me for spending $9,000 on my mountain bike instead of on her. I race professional and I took her out to dinner at least 3 times a week and got her gifts all the time. Plus we got to travel the world thanks to sponsors. But the one purchase for myself was too selfish. Update. Or MHSP2 with box components. When she puts a phone in your trunk on top of your spare tire to track you via GPS. I don't use my trunk. She knew that. She hooked it up to the 12-volt charger in my trunk and put a tracking up on the additional line she bought. I only discovered it when I had a blowout and had to use it. When I questioned her about it, she said she had trust issues. But good news. Every time I told her I was somewhere, I was at that place. We broke up after that. Edit. This has blown up more than I expected. Some of you are much more creative than I am. The story had a happy ending for me. It was a toxic relationship. But my next relationship was with the woman who became my wife. We will be celebrating our 8th wedding anniversary in a couple of months. I sometimes wish I had been able to help my ex. She had quite a few good qualities. But the suspicion, insecurity, and attempts to control me were too much for me to deal with at the time. It sucks when you see what someone could become, but you know they probably never will. She'll joke about having kids before you're even in a serious relationship. I went on a couple dates with this one girl who had mentioned how much she wanted kids. Nothing unusual. Pretty common actually. I'm looking forward to being a dad one day. Then she started sending me those weird things where you put two people's pictures together and see what their kids would look like. One time would be quirky, but she sent me a different one every morning for a week. Broke it off when I realized I hadn't even given her a picture of myself. Edit. The only social media I have is Reddit. But I guess people can get anything on the internet. TLDR. Girl I hadn't talked to in 4 years started messaging my friends asking why I hadn't responded to her good morning text at 10 in the morning. Met this girl in church group in middle school. We got to know each other because of the group but didn't really become friends or anything. Stopped going when I went to high school and never talked to her for 3 years. She commented on her FB status I had and we got to chatting and I agreed to hang out the next weekend. I asked if we should invite other people in our old church group since I hadn't seen any of them in a while and she said no. I thought this was cause she liked me and wanted to hang out with me so I was flattered. I kept talking to her throughout the day. The next morning I woke up around 10 AM to about 7-8 missed calls, 2 voice messages, and countless text messages from her. I was pretty creeped out by then. The nail in the coffin was one of the messages I got was from an old friend from the church group asking me if I talked to that girl. I was confused how my friend knew I talked to this girl the day before. Turns out the girl started messaging my friends asking when I wake up in the morning and why I hadn't messaged her back. I'm a girl. Just went on this thread to nervously check if I'm creepy. She asks you your sign, then giggles, gives crazy eyes, and says we're compatible. Asking for your passwords, phone, email, Facebook, etc. as a sign of trust. Nope, I have nothing to hide. However, when you think you need to have that information, it shows you already don't trust me, and anyone who asks and then says they won't use it, is lying. They may not use it that day, or even soon, but they will use it at some point, because the same suspicion that led to them asking for it, will lead them to use it. Edit. So maybe I wasn't clear about a couple of things. First, I'm not talking about something like your Netflix or Amazon Prime password, which can just be convenience. Hell, I have some of my friends' Netflix passwords. I'm talking phone, email and social media specifically. Second, if you want to offer it, more power to you. But someone shouldn't ask for that is my thought, especially not as a way to prove that you aren't cheating. And 3, like most things, marriage changes stuff. I still think it's a bit much to have all of someone else's passwords and have access to everything that they ever do, or people say to them, but I understand it a bit more. She's hot but still interested in you. When they know more about your errands than what you told her. Extra creepy point is she becomes angry when you deviate from your initial daily plans. Extra creepy points if she starts angrily texting you when you change your plans as your day is unfolding. Edit. Thanks for caring for me guys. Hopefully this is not a situation I'm currently or have been in. While I do have an ex both girlfriend then friend which ended up to be a very toxic person for me and I'm still have some mild trust issues because of it. This is not the kind of stuff she would pull of, well, she did stalk me on some chat room. I was a regular with a fake persona and it should have been a wake up call for me to run very far away. It didn't and we ended up hurting each other a lot afterwards. When she blatantly says it's not abuse when it happens to men. When she has decided you are her best friend after being around you for an hour. When after 2 days she tells you she loves you. And also proceeds to mention that she loves your green eyes so much that if we ever broken up she would steal them while you sleep and keep them in a jar in her room. Inability to apologize for anything ever. Punishing you silent treatment for doing something you had no idea would be offensive to them. Having expectations of you that they don't try to meet themselves. An all-consuming obsession with horses. An inability to live her life as it is now. Instead being laser focused on getting a husband and then having children. I'm not talking about normal long-term goals here. I mean a single girl who's always talking about finding her husband and having kids. when the proper next step is finding a boyfriend, the step after that being engagement, then marriage, then having children. FWIW. Every girl I've known who is like this has also lived rent-free with parents, which tends to limit one's romantic opportunities. YMMV. Of course. She asks what your religion is, and when you give an answer different than hers you hear her mutter, "We could work on that." Happened to me. She was a weekly churchgoer and I'm atheist. I've posted this before. But a long time ago in the 90s I was set up on a blind date. The girl knew way too much about me. She knew my brother's names, where I grew up, and other personal stuff you'd have to dig a little to find out. This was pre-Facebook. And back in the 90s she would have had to ask people who actually knew me to find out. She was just a friend of a friend of a friend kind of thing. So I noped out of that one pretty quick. Later, I asked the people who had set up the date what the hell etc. And turns out the girl had this super long crush on me and was reportedly devastated that I wasn't into her. Luckily I steered clear of that possible Stephen King novel scenario. When she thinks my beard hair is public domain. Drunk girls at bars ducking love to just walk up and grab my beard or run their fingers through my hair. Excuse me itch? I don't ducking care how hot you think are. Keeping your greasy ducking thought fingers away from my ducking face. If you would like to touch either ducking, say hey you have a real nice beard hair. Would you mind if I felt it? And I'd be happy to give you a go. But don't ducking think for 1 second that you're entitled to just start touching me just because you're hot. It's creepy AF and makes me uncomfortable. Not to mention, who the hell likes random people grabbing their face? If I just walked around drunk grabbing girls' faces or hair, I'd be in jail by the end of the night with a pie and an assault charge. But these girls just run around ducking touching people and think it's okay. Long black fingers with heavily pointed fingernails. Arched back at the neck with eyes as black as pitch. Mouthless face. Matted hair. Pungent scent. Speaks telepathically through visual symbols. Carries a belt of skulls and only appears after dark. Finding her collection of hair. I hate these threads cause it MGF does always gets brought up. Calling up to my job and saying she's my wife and she's trying to get a hold of me. We had 2 dates Linda. I didn't even duck you. But you're ducking crazy. Leave Emmy alone Linda. WHOTF is even named Linda anymore. If she doesn't ask me many questions or doesn't seem interested in my life, but still manages to be clingy. If they never blink then something's up. When she tried to blame her constant control and guilt antics on a bad reaction to her birth control. We lived about an hour away from each other and she called me from her car in my driveway and insisted, almost breathlessly for 20 minutes that she had to see me and explain this in person, which I absolutely refused. She knew I was home. My car was there. But the whole thing was so out of the blue and stalkery I told her over and over I didn't want to see her and she could say whatever it was over the phone. And all this after I told her clearly weeks before I hoped we could be friends. But that we should go no contact for a couple months to let things settle. I found out later why she was so insistent. In the 3 weeks since I broke up with her, she was basically starving herself, exercising obsessively, and she was a total couch potato prior, and lost around 20 pounds. She convinced herself the reason I broke up with her was because she had gained a little weight. She thought once I saw her I would change my mind. I didn't even know what to think of that. Slightly offended because she thought I was that shallow. And even more creeped out that she had her head so far in the sand she invented an imaginary problem solution for me leaving her instead of seeing her own behavior for even a second. If they have a kid and immediately try and make you the kid's dad, get the duck out. She goes through your drawers when you're sleeping. She gets on top, gets an eye twitch, then sticks a razor to my throat and says, "Do you trust me?" I say yes. For a couple good reasons. She the cuts me, starts sucking the blood, grinding harder, and really into it. I mean it was hot, but not, ya know. When you go over to her house late at night and she guides you through her pitch black house to a room full of Disney dolls and acts like that is normal. A girl wanted to date me and she told me how she climbed in her ex's second story window to argue with him. No thanks. When she is a colleague from work and she turns up at the gym coincidentally 5 minutes after you have arrived and she's in a low cut top and starts laughing and touching your arms and bending over and just generally being weird. Especially when she knows that you have a wife and kids and this 45-minute session is the only piece you get 3 times a week. She dyes her hair every color of the rainbow just to see how you'd react. Tells your family to back off because you are hers. Cheats with her male roommate while you run out to the car to grab a red box. Gives you herpes. Duck you Rachel. Go eat a bag of D's. If she makes a habit of using her phone to take pictures of strangers in public. If she takes screenshots of private conversations and sends them to other people or posts them online. This one is a mixed bag, but demanding to have access to your phone, social media accounts, et al. I feel people deserve some privacy. Yes. Oxymoron as I'm referring to social media, as their phone's accounts can be a direct line to their inner thoughts. People used to keep their inner thoughts, you know, in their head. If they feel the need to confirm via your phone accounts you are a, not cheating, and b, not saying anything they would take offense to, I would look for the door, kick them to the curb, definitely not marry them. Edit, spelling. When she knew the barracks I was staying at just by a selfie alone even though I was on the other side of the country at the time. She never served, and she has never been to that area before. That phone call got real awkward. IDK about creepy, but I avoid a woman like the plague if she shares posts about being a psycho winaholic chicken nugget addict. It's not endearing to be controlling or an annoying drunk. Brags about fluency and sarcasm. Creepy because most of us outgrew that stage in middle school. When she starts asking what you're doing every day over social media. She takes Harry Potter way too seriously. Jesus girl, we're both 28. Keeps trying to bait you into saying something she can use against you in the future. Has a boyfriend she loves but keeps trying to get attention from every possible man. When they tell you extremely personal details that are supposed to make you sympathetic but just make you uncomfortable and not sure how to react. Had a girl who told me on the way to a park that her first time was in a park, already kinda personal, and that she was raped. She said it really casually too. More power to her if she's moved past trauma, but just casually dropping it in conversation was a red flag. If she gets real clingy real fast, run. When she boils your kid's pet rabbit, seriously, stay away from the bunny boilers. Second date is to a federal prison to visit her son that's doing life for murder. Later saying the phone she snuck in her cooch made her too sore for 6 tonight. All of your conversations about your potential future together start with when we, instead of if we, when we get married, when we have kids, etc. She knows where you are and who you're with all the time. She creates new memories of you two together by cutting and pasting together old photos. I don't think people are answering this correctly as the question asks how to tell if a girl is creepy, not crazy. A friend of mine had a girlfriend that had a huge foot fetish and was with him. Later this came to light, because he had nice looking feet for a guy. He broke it off because he found some Tupperware with toenail clippings and names taped to each of the Tupperware in her apartment. Guys' names. His name was on one. She was otherwise a nice person. This great sketch from SNL for red flag perfume. My current girlfriend has some qualities. She is constantly talking about her issues with her family. Just told me she has incestuous dreams about family. Is the only one without issues. Despite her family having a lot. Can laugh like a witch and loud. So much so people will stop doing what they are doing and stare. etc. etc. And wants to know who is texting me. Will look at my messages while I'm texting. She wants me around all the time and I tell her it's okay to be with other friends. Girlfriend was practicing her signature and asked if she could see mine. Innocent enough, right? I rattle off a few beautiful Johnny Hancocks on a napkin. And beyond admiring my own handiwork, don't think of it any further. Fast forward a week, and she says, check out my new tattoo. Sure enough it's my signature, first name only, on her right, or wrong, hip. Yikes. Fast forward to her solo European trip. Turns out she cheated on me with a guy with the same first name. Bet he was scared. Trust your gut instinct. If something feels creepy and off about your interactions, then that's probably a bad sign. Always going on about how every situation in life is unfair to them, from their parents, to their job, to any of their long-term friends. At first it's like, oh how sad that this happened. I'm sure you'll have a better day tomorrow, to actually thinking you're talking to a conspiracy theorist. Routinely posting on social media about heartbreak and how they've been let down too many times even though they were only in one long-term relationship. Drinking large quantities of kombucha whilst extolling it as some sort of cure-all elixir. Only God can judge me, or if you can't handle me at my worst you don't deserve me at my best. Referring to their large collection of stuffed animals as their children. I went on a date with some interweb rando girl years ago. The first date was nice, but she struck me as being pretty strange. That's fine with me though. I like strange chicks. We planned on doing a second date. And she stood me up. I texted her later that night, and her excuse was basically, I'm so sorry, I got sick and couldn't make it. I was pissed, but willing to give her a second chance, and said that she could have just texted me to let me know, because I would have understood. We scheduled another date, and the same damn thing happened. She didn't show. I was legitimately pissed off now. I called her a couple hours later, and I made sure to be very polite and civil, but I told her that this wasn't gonna work out if she was going to no-show 2 out of 3 times. She then started basically begging, saying that it wasn't her fault because she was sick again. I reiterated that she should have just texted me to cancel, and she said that she couldn't because her mom took her phone away. I told her that I was still done, and she tried to have me talk to her mom to vouch for the fact that she was without a phone earlier. We were not high school kids, we were both employed adults. So you can understand how strange this sounded. I noped right the hell out of there after hearing the excuse couldn't make it tonight. My mom took my phone. Ducking weird colon. When she pays too close attention to the is typing bubble. If she calls you multiple times per day every day for no ducking reason, I'm not going to armchair psychiatrist it, but it's ducking weird and in my experience a solid indicator of much bigger issues. Ring ring. Me. Hello. Her. Hi. Silence. Her. What's up? Me. Nothing new in the last 2 hours. Silence. Her. Cool. Silence. Me. Thinking. Why the duck are we having this conversation? Watch how they treat the common person. Are they rude to waiters waitresses over something petty? Maybe they got the wrong drink or something and they overreact. See how they do in a day-to-day annoyance and that'll give you a good idea of how they are normally.